You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hi, Young and the Restless fans. Well, Ian Ward is enraged this week when his plan falls apart and he may lose it and kidnap Mariah, Tessa, and baby Aria in his desperation. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt, and we're going to dive into what drives Ian off the deep end and has him taking drastic action. But if you've not subscribed, please press that button. So is there a new twisted plan coming soon to the CBS soap? Even though much of their plot happened off screen and before we even knew that Ian Ward and Jordan Howard were behind it, you know, this whole storyline began way back in, it was like middle or late June, when Sharon Newman began showing signs of a nervous breakdown, began hallucinating and acting out, and seemed to be off her medication. And then September was when Heather Stevens was murdered and Sharon framed Daniel for it. And then it was mid-November that Ian was back and Psycho Jordan was revealed as his partner. So now we're roughly in month 8 of this storyline, which I think we can all agree is way too long. Fortunately, a big move that infuriates Ian this week could get us on the road to resolution, to the big endgame showdown, which I expect will come in February sweeps that begins at the end of January. So in case you don't recall Ian's plan, he had a dying inmate swap spots with Jordan, so everybody thinks she's still in prison. The chick is still alive. I thought she had died, but no. She's still alive and still in there serving time under Jordan's name. So then Ian had Jordan tamper Sharon's meds and kill Heather to set up Sharon to punish her for getting Mariah away from him all those years ago. And then when the medication tampering was exposed, Ian shifted gears. He decided to have Jordan kill Sharon and frame Phyllis to tie up loose ends. Meanwhile, Jordan had been expecting Ian to follow through and target Claire on her behalf. But 8 months into this, Ian has not done one thing that he promised Jordan he'd do. So she's angry and stuck Sharon in the sewer and dumped her car in the river, and Phyllis is still completely on the loose. And now we know from spoilers that Sharon and Phyllis are going to wind up in a life or death dilemma together. But the thing is, only Jordan knows where Sharon is stashed. And she told Ian this week that she would lead the cops to Sharon and he would be implicated because she had left evidence to implicate him in the kidnapping. So it could be time for Ian to cut bait and run. And that means if Phyllis winds up with Sharon in the sewer, it could be Jordan who puts her there to tie up her own loose ends. All of that aside, we know Ian's ultimate thing, his goal, his end game. The real reason he is doing all this is Mariah. He wants his daughter back. Ian's got a twisted obsession with Mariah, and, you know, he could never have biological kids of his own. That's why he bought her as a baby, raised her as a daughter. You know, he did give her a terrible upbringing, and then Ian married her and planned to make her his true wife, which is just disgusting. There is something deeply wrong with him. And now that he's met Tessa, he finds her charming, and he even told the ladies that he has no issue with their same-sex marriage, and he's been very interested in little Aria. So we know Ian's got a big showdown coming, and he's not done with his revenge plan, but he may have to give up on some of his goals and focus on the primary thing he wants, which is getting Mariah back. So here's my question. Is Awful Ian going to go ahead and take Mariah and her whole family and make them his family in a twisted redo of the past? I mean, there's honestly no telling how far Ian could go. He might snatch Mariah and Tessa, marry them both, decide he's going to make them some kind of sick little sister wives thing, and then see little Aria as the child, the adopted child of himself and his 2 young brides. And I know that sounds skin-crawlingly icky, icky, but if you remember when Mariah woke up in that wedding dress with Ian leering over her, you should remember just how twisted this psycho gaslighting pervert is, because he is just terrible. There is something broken deep inside of Ian, and really there's no telling what lengths he might go to achieve this vision that's festering in his horrible brain. He served his time behind bars, he got his freedom, and he could have done anything that he wanted, but instead of making the most of his early parole and his fresh start, Ian came right back to Genoa City, the city that hates him most on the planet, and started up with his sick games again. And Mariah is onto him. Let's be clear. She and Nick and Victor all see Ian very clearly. They know what he's capable of, and Mariah threatened to kill Ian to protect her family, said she would do him bodily harm if he came near her wife or daughter again. But there's no way Mariah's threats are going to stop Ian. They probably won't even slow him up for a minute. He already dosed Tessa once and nearly conked her out so he could play fake hero. So I could see Ian drugging Tessa with something more serious and snatching Aria, taking them both, using them to lure Mariah to him, and then he can drug her too, or he could just, drug all three. I wouldn't be surprised if Ian kidnapped Tessa and Mariah and they both wake up in matching wedding gowns with Aria in a little bridesmaid gown, I just can't imagine what is so low that Ian wouldn't sink to that level. He does not care that he raised Mariah as his child because he married her before anyway. And as a matter of fact, now that he's masquerading as a chaplain, he probably thinks he can preside over his own wedding to one or both of these women. And yes, Ian said he wanted Mariah, but he might think two is better than one and go ahead and just take the whole family, both the women and the baby. After all, if Ian has Mariah, her wife, and their baby, he can threaten the two women with harm or threaten the baby with harm to keep both of the ladies under control. This whole twisted scenario has a lot of potential for Ian to indulge his sick fantasies. So here's what I really hope. No matter who Ian grabs, whether it's just Mariah or Tessa, and, both of them, Aria, one, two, or all three of them, I really hope Mariah follows through on her threat. I'd like to see her kill Ian, just as she promised that she would. If you remember, in 2023, her mom Sharon killed Camryn Kirsten for kidnapping her and her daughter Faith. I'd like to see Mariah channel her mom Sharon and kill the man who kidnaps her and possibly her wife and daughter, if that's the way it goes, this year. I think that would be just poetic and the best way to see Ian ended once and for all. I would totally be down to see that happen. No one deserves a shot at closure by killing him like Mariah does when it comes to the fate of her diabolical adoptive daddy.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.